Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I know I haven't made a video for a while, I don't know why, but I was suddenly hit with the inspiration to get back into making some videos, so I thought I'd come here and share some film recommendations, specifically Japanese films that you should watch, 5 of them in fact. Before I get into the list, I'd just like to say that there is no specific order, no ranking so to speak. All of these films are great and have their own merits. The only thing that I'm suggesting in this video is that you go watch all of them and hopefully that you enjoy all of them. So my first film that I have to recommend to you is Throne of Blood by Akira Kurosawa. Now I don't know if any of you are gamers out there, but Ghost of Tsushima recently released on PlayStation 4 and that has gotten a lot of attention because it included an authentic Akira Kurosawa mode. And I thought I'd include this one because if you're curious about samurai cinema, this would be a great place to start. Not only is it a classic of Japanese cinema, it's also an imaginative retelling of the Shakespeare classic Macbeth, so there's some familiarity there for Western viewers. I think the main thing that stands out with this film is just how ambitious and impressive it is. Without giving too much away, there are some scenes where you'll see hundreds or thousands of characters on the screen, and considering that this was made in 1950s Japan, post-war, post-atomic bomb, the level of production design and imagination here is remarkable considering it's almost, 70 years old. So Throne of Blood is an absolute must-watch. My next recommendation is a film called Audition by the famous Japanese author Takashi Miike. Now, if you've never seen a Takashi Miike film before, all I really have to say is, well, they're just a bit crazy. And Audition is the perfect example of that. It tells the story of a man who loses his wife to an unfortunate illness, and a few years later he decides to find a new wife, but rather than being a normal person and going out there and meeting people, he decides to use one of his contacts in the entertainment industry to set up a fake audition with a bunch of women under the guise that they're looking for an actress for a part, but actually he's screening them for potential partners. Audition is a very interesting film in the sense that it's a film that benefits from you going into it not knowing anything about it. It's sort of like Parasite in the sense that it blends these different genres and it makes these jarring transitions between genres. But it's a very, very interesting film. I will warn though, it is definitely not for the faint of heart without giving too much away. If you're easily squeamish or you're not a big horror person, then I would not recommend this film. But if you're interested in a film that is very unique, grim, dark, but also insightful about the nature of relationships. It's based off a very interesting Japanese novel, and it has a lot of interesting things to say about us as people, how we view one another, especially in the context of social relationships. So if you're in the mood for something a bit different and a bit out there, Audition is definitely highly recommended. My third recommendation is Kinji Fukasaku. I apologise if I've butchered or mispronounced the name. Pronunciation is not my strong suit. His film Battle Royale. Now, I'm sure many of you have probably heard of this movie. I mean, it's become a staple of pop culture at this point, and it's even influenced various works of pop culture. For example, the Hunger Games books by Suzanne Collins, or more recently the Battle Royale craze in gaming that we've been seeing. So you can blame this movie for Fortnite and Apex Legends and all these other Battle Royale games. Many of you will probably know the story of Battle Royale is it's set in this authoritarian Japan where fascism has taken over, and as a method of controlling the population, they select a random class of Japanese students every year to fight to the death. It is an incredibly brutal movie. It's over the top. It's exceedingly violent. It's also darkly funny in a number of areas. It's so absurd that on occasion you can't just help but not laugh. And at the time it was very provocative. And there's a lot of social commentary on there about the nature of government, the relationship between young people and the expectations that government set for them, especially during difficult times. It is a classic movie and it's a great load of fun, so I highly recommend this as well. So my fourth recommendation, changing up a bit, perhaps a less of a dark, dreary recommendation, is the animated film from 2016, Your Name by Makoto Shinkai. This, I think, is one of the most successful movies at the Japanese box office. It was a smash hit domestically but also internationally, and for good reason. The director has previously worked on some short films, I think like The Garden of Words, or I think that's what it's called, and A Few Centimeters Per Second. I apologise if I misremember these titles, it's been a while since I've watched them. Your Name is about two people who are connected by dreams, and they keep body swapping when they're asleep. It's kind of hard to explain. It's been a while since I've watched it, and I definitely need to rewatch it myself. But it's this beautifully animated story that plays with lots of different ideas, which I won't spoil because it's hard to talk about this film without going into the details of the plot. But I mean, even just from looking at the screenshots, it has some of the most beautiful animation that you will ever see. Aside from the visuals, it's funny, it's charming, and it's genuinely quite emotional at times. And if you don't have a tear in your eye by the end of the film, I would question your levels of empathy. I'm just kidding, of course, but no, it is a very emotionally charged film, and it's a work of art. As many people have joked, you can basically take any frame from this movie and set it as your computer desktop. It is that beautiful. It's beautiful visually, but also emotionally, and it's a very powerful piece of work, one that I highly recommend you check out. So my final recommendation comes from the Japanese horror craze of the early 2000s. And I know some people will probably expect me to have recommended Ring, which I suppose you can take as an additional recommendation. In this one, I've decided to recommend Dark Water, which is, I suppose, a lesser known, but still a very impressive piece of cinema. If any of the viewers here are familiar with the film critic Mark Kermode in the UK, he's very famous here. He calls it a J-horror masterpiece, and I couldn't agree more. It tells the story of this recently divorced single mom who moves into this apartment with her young daughter, and what happens is they start experiencing some supernatural, spooky occurrences. They specifically start seeing the mirages of this young girl who used to be in the building, and it's an interesting film because it's not one of those horror films where there are loads of jump scares every 5 seconds. It really builds this grimy atmosphere of tension and dread. It's really suspenseful in that regard. But not only is it genuinely quite frightening in that sense, what's really impressive about it is that it's actually quite emotional, and it has a lot to say about the nature of parenting and about love and about what that means. And it's genuinely quite a powerful piece of cinema. So not only is it a scary film, you'll definitely, you'll be clenching your fists or hiding under the covers, but it'll also give you something to ponder and reflect upon. So there you have it, my top 5 Japanese film recommendations. Have you seen any of these? Do you plan to watch any of them? Let me know what you think down below, and please like and subscribe for more future videos. Take care, everyone.